Yes, and now I think we started recording. So we should start right now. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's panel, where we welcome a few prestigious Purdue alumni and hear about their experience at Purdue and their experience in industry as well as graduate school. Mary and I will be moderating this panel today. So here's a brief introduction about us. Hi, my name is Mohammed Metwaly. I'm a senior in computer engineering, and I'm a current transferred COVID-19 team. Moving on to my co-moderator, Mary.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Zhao. I am currently a sophomore majoring in electrical engineering. And this semester, I am an undergraduate teaching assistant for ECE 264 under Professor Liu.
Welcome, Aphwa. We already started and the panel is recording. So we would like to introduce our panelists for today. So we have here Sriram, who's a senior firmware engineer at Tesla Motors. He graduated from the University with a bachelor's in electrical engineering in 2018. He has worked on battery firmware for all of Tesla's vehicles that are currently in production. Sriram's focus has been on firmware testing, vehicle simulation, and test automation. He has covered several aspects of Tesla's batteries technology stack, from hardware analysis and design all the way to low-level embedded firmware and high-level physics models.
Our next panelist is Dr. Le Cai, who is a senior staff engineer from Alibaba Database Group, focusing on database key technology exploration and development. Before Alibaba, he spent over 10 years in the database industry as a key developer and architect for Huawei's MPP-DB and IBM DB2. He graduated from Purdue University with PhD, supervised by Professor Liu, bachelor and master's degree from Tsinghua University. He likes sports and was a marathon runner. Welcome, Dr. Cai.
Thank you.
Next, we have Neeve, who is an experienced sales engineer with a demonstrated history of working in the tech industry, focusing on media, technology, and entertainment. Skilled in technical sales, communication, computer networking, and cloud computing. Neeve graduated from Purdue University in 2015 with a bachelor's in electrical engineering and completed a master's in technology management from Columbia University in 2019 while working full-time.
We would like to welcome Mina Kuo, who is a software engineer at Amazon. She graduated from Purdue University with a bachelor's degree in computer science in 2018 and earned a master's degree in data science from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in 2020. During her time at Purdue, she had been a research assistant in the ChemSquared research group, working on a cloud-based system for studying the worldwide phenomenon using network cameras. Before working full-time at Amazon, she had also been working as a data science intern and software development intern at Synchrony.
And last but not least, we'd like to welcome Afua Bruce, the Chief Program Officer at DataKind. She graduated from Purdue University with a bachelor's in computer engineering in 2005 with a minor in management. After graduating from Purdue, she worked as a software engineer at IBM for 3 years before she got her MBA in corporate study general management from Michigan University in 2011. Afua has worked in many other places before becoming the Chief Program Officer at DataKind. These places include the Federal Bureau of Investigation, National Science and Technology Council, New America, and Carnegie Mellon University. She is skilled at many areas, including strategy, program management, and leadership. So thank you guys for joining us today. We will now ask you to briefly talk about your experience at Purdue for 4 to 5 minutes. You can talk about anything you like, academic, non-academic, during your time at Purdue. Sriram, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, no worries. Hi, everyone. My name is Sriram. And yeah, my experience at Purdue. First of all, it was a little while ago, so forgive me if I forget any details. But yeah, Purdue was an amazing experience for me. There were like a lot of things that were available for me to do, and this was sort of my first step into exploring engineering as a career, as it is for so many of you as well. So when I first joined Purdue, I joined the engineering program, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to pursue. And I joined the electrical engineering program, and I graduated as an electrical engineer. But one of the great things about electrical engineering was that, is that it allows you to diversify in a lot of different ways, as it's actually a very flexible degree. And I ended up in my senior year taking 264 with Professor Liu. And I feel like that class sort of put me on a different trajectory, and has made me the firmware engineer that I am right now. I developed an interest in software. I started going more towards software engineering related classes. My senior design itself was the 477 computer engineering senior design. So yeah, Purdue all in all was a great experience. I loved that it was extremely diverse, and also that there was a large availability for practical application of skills. By this, I mean that I also joined the solar racing team at Purdue in my last 2 years. And there was also opportunity to join different research programs. I ended up joining a research program in my last summer there. My second to last summer there, working on a CubeSat satellite program, which is very interesting. And in my last summer, I ended up joining the CAM2 research program, which is how I guess I got pulled into this seminar in the first place. But it was a great learning experience, and I enjoyed every single bit of it, which was a great thing. And yeah, overall, the Purdue experience was wonderful. Definitely made a lot of good lifelong friends, but also it was a great stepping stone into the actual industry. I feel Purdue prepares everyone very well for the industry by giving them plenty of career placement opportunities, and also having seminars like this where you actually get to hear from people in the industry. So yeah, that was my full experience.
Thank you. Dr. Tsai, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So it's my honor to be here, share my thoughts. Yeah, I totally agree with Sriram, what he said. So Purdue prepare us very well for the industry. So offer a lot of opportunities to learn many subjects. I think that's the major value we acquire from Purdue. So I mean, for myself, so I came to Purdue or US basically. Purdue is my first stop. So it's for me, it's totally fresh experience to see another country and to see a total different style of university and the campus and the teacher and the students, right? It's totally new for us. So it's a lot of struggling, I mean, through the first years, I mean, in Purdue. But I think when I look back, I think the major thing I thought is Purdue prepared me very well. I mean, give me very solid foundation to become an engineer or a scholar, I think, in the long run, basically. I think a few things. First, I think in Purdue, basically we learn a lot of comprehensive topics. You can imagine we can have computer science, double E, right? Electrical engineer, and also we have solid state, image, video, analog, everything. I still remember. I actually, of course, my major. I'm Professor Lu's student, right? My major, I mean, my focus is on operating system and the energy efficiency. So back to that day. So, but I also took class in solid state. So and also VLSI. You can imagine how broad I mean area we get prepared, because I think that's a very good experience and the preparation for future successful, because you for the future success, because you know how other area, how things work from very fundamentally, I mean, the idea. So I think that's the one thing. Another thing is we actually learned a lot of good tips, good habits from professor, from our project co-workers. I still remember Professor Lu always told us to take notes, right? And write summary and present ideas in group, right? Ask good questions and pay attention to technical writing, a lot of things. So I still have remember one experience I had in Purdue is I first joined the lab. I was assigned to do some measurement work with a special board. I think I'm not sure that thing is still in the lab. It's called IDP, which is like a development board for those embedded system, right? They have CPU, they have everything, but you can measure, I mean, different parts. So when we got that, I think I did something, but one day when we try again, I figured out the thing didn't come up, and there's no power, or maybe CPU or memory died, right? Kind of things. So we send the board back, and the vendor check it, and they figure out, okay, you guys changing some switch, and so then the CPU couldn't stop. So then everything couldn't stop. So then we got back. I check, okay, it's my mistake. I changed some switch and I did not take notes. So you can imagine our research work, I mean, take a lot of efforts. I mean, we have a lot of steps to do, right? We change this, we change that, we modify a lot of codes. But if we don't take notes for especially key points, then we will miss some points, right? So that's a very good lesson I learned from very beginning. So it's like we waste a few days, but it look like we should, I mean, avoid that from the first place. So I think notes and the summary and I mean everything, it just give us a very good habit. So that's helped me a lot in my long run as an engineer or as an architect or as a designer, or right now I'm a manager. So everything I think prepare me for, I mean, the future work. I mean, so that's very good experience. I think a third thing is I learned is Purdue, right? It's a place that basically we don't have a place to go. I mean, for a lot of fun. So normally we just working very hard. So my idea is we should do like more self-driven and interest-driven hard working. So I still remember how struggle with my thesis work. So in order to make some good progress, I spent a lot of time at the lab developing and debugging and doing a lot of thinking. I mean, on the way back to home, right? So Purdue have a lot of underground hallway, right? We don't even need to get out of building, right? We just go through the underground hallway, and sometimes we take baths, right? So then one interesting thing I figured out a few years later when I start internship in California for Google, I actually got sun allergy. So sun allergy. I think one part reason is because California is sunshine, right? But I came from China, southern China, very hot area. I should not be, right? So I figured out maybe because I stay at lab for too many times, so I don't get exposed to the sun for many times. So the plants, right? Each different kinds of plants, they need sunshine for maybe some plants need 4 hours per day, right? Another plants, they will need 2 hours per day, right? So I think for human being, we also need some sunshine. So I think that's how my experience back to Purdue about work, about, I mean, experience about the research. So I will stop here. So basically, I think as Sriram said, so Purdue give us very good preparation for future work. I think I will stop here. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cai.
Mm.
Neeve, would you like to go next?
Sure. So Shri, I think, was actually my TA. So Shri, good to see you. It's been a very long. We were like 2 years difference.
Glad you recognize me with a beard now.
Yeah. Sorry, but so I think I don't want to repeat a lot what was already said. I'll try to give a different perspective. I similarly chose Purdue in general because they didn't make you choose the type of engineering you wanted the first year. I floated back and forth probably 7 times where Angela Rainwater hated me so much because I was compy, then double E, then compy. And I ended up just being a double E and taking mainly computer engineering courses. and then a couple of like communications courses, including like 440. So, which was kind of applicable to like the media space, and like how like video and content is distributed. So I ended up with a different career path. I kind of went into sales engineering. My first boss at Cisco told me, hey, like you're good, you're technical, you can write code, but you're just way too outgoing to not be in front of a client. So you should be the technical facing person in front of the client. And so I kind of just was like, sure, okay. And that's kind of how I got into it. It was pretty simple. It's been a good ride. And then I moved to Google 2.5 years ago. And I think what Purdue taught in a lot of ways is, I would say like definitely the programming classes, regardless if you're double E or CompE, I would highly recommend taking them. Like data structures is the course after this. I don't know if Professor Liu, you are teaching that or if it's Co still, but highly recommend taking those classes. They are very useful in any career path that you go in, whether you're programming a ton or whether you're like, I just script really and do like proof of concepts, but it's very helpful for me just in general to understand a lot of things. And I think Purdue did a really good job with kind of those core foundation courses along with 270 and 362 that are just like really, really useful in like so many industries. So I think like those core courses, they did a really good job and really good professors to kind of set you up for whatever it is that you want to do. And to piggyback off of what Dr. Kai was saying, as I think there wasn't much to do at Purdue. And it was a really hard school. And if you don't know this, Purdue is one of the hardest schools in terms of how many A's they give out. And it's one of the highest dropout rates of engineering. So if you guys stick in there and you make it through, it's a very impressive degree. And in industry, Purdue is very well known. You know, the amount of times I've gotten, oh, you went to Purdue, is that an Ivy League school? Like, I'm like, no, it's just in Indiana. Like, but it's a very well-known school and it has a lot of high regard. So if you can make it through the tough classes, the negative temperatures and just the tough times that we all know about, it really is worth it. And I think it really goes a long way for whatever type of career you want to do. So I think that's kind of my experience and where I got and kind of some of the best things that I can, my experience of what was useful at Purdue. And the only thing I could say is go to office hours. Like Professor Liu and all of these professors are very helpful. And like, if I didn't go to office hours and I didn't like stick on top of it, I think like, it's not just about like getting the good grade, but it's like, now Professor Liu invited to me this years later and it's just like great to see everybody and have that. And then you get on these panels and you meet people and it's just, networking is huge, and try to network early on in your career. I just think it's something that is really useful. So I'll leave it there.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
What about you, Mina? Would you like to share your experience?
Yeah, sure. So this is Mina, and I graduated from Purdue in 2018 in computer science major. And at that time, I had a focus on the machine learning concentration. And so after that, I went to a master program in information science at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And so from there, I took some classes like closely related to data science instead. And now I'm working as a software engineer at Amazon. So during my time at Purdue, I mostly focused on my coursework as well as some research experiences. So I spent almost a year at Professor Liu's labs. And so from there, the Chem 2, I learned a lot of things related to machine learning, computer vision, as well as some data analysis skills. And also I got some very practical research experiences like writing paper and like attending some like group meetings or something like that. And I found those like super helpful for me for my later development, because I learned a lot of people, and I also like presented a lot of times like during the research work. Also, I think it's a very, very worthy experiences. So I'm glad that you chose Professor Liu's like labs for your like research experiences. So as for my daily life at Purdue, at the beginning, I wasn't like pretty happy about it because it was such a boring campus. But then I like later when I got into another like college as well as like Seattle, I realized that I really miss like all the activities held by our campus, such as like corn maze or like farmers market and something like that. I really miss that. So I really appreciate the my experience at Purdue, and I felt like this is a college really like cares about students, and you can really like gain a lot from this campus. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Afua, would you like to talk about your experience at Purdue?
Sure. I don't want to be too duplicative of what others have said, but in short, Purdue is a great school. It is really challenging, so it feels really rewarding when you graduate, and certainly gives you the technical foundation to really succeed in any technical career, I think, or technical adjacent career. As was said in my bio, after working at IBM as a software engineer for a few years, I went back and got an MBA and then made a pivot to really, instead of working in for-profit companies, working in the public interest sector, so with nonprofits and government agencies. And I found my Purdue engineering degree to be incredibly powerful, and just the training from classes, including Professor Liu's class, to really pay off, even as I've switched to more of a managerial side. I remember when I worked at the FBI, I was the senior advisor to the agent who was over all of the FBI's technology stuff. So all of like the spy toys, all of the crime labs, all of that stuff that you hear about, that was like the advisor to the agent who ran all of that. And I remember doing a review of a particular project, and it dealt with details of technology they use aren't that important, but they were describing the code basically that they had written and how I was so wonderful. And I just remember like stopping and listening to them and then saying, I think what you're trying to describe is this particular algorithm, which seems like it's maybe not the most efficient way to do things. Am I understanding this correctly? And they all stopped and said, well, you seem like you know a lot about algorithms and this. And I was like, mm-hmm. They're like, oh, right, the Purdue engineer. And I was like, yeah, I still know that stuff. There's hours and hours of work in, as has been said, with not a lot of distractions, really instilled that in me. And so I just still, even now throughout my career and, spending time with the White House's Science and Technology Council, and now at DataKind, where we use volunteer data scientists around the world to work on data science projects for nonprofits and government agencies around the world. I just come back so often to the fundamentals that I learned at Purdue. So definitely all the data structures, the software engineering principles that have already been talked about, but also the ability to make connections between different topics, to write up your thoughts in ways that you can present them and communicate them to your teammates, or to a decision maker who's going to make a decision about whether to fund you or whether to continue the project you're on, or something like that. While I was on campus, just briefly, because I think I'm almost at time, I definitely spend lots of time in the EE building. I've been back to campus recently.
Oh, wow.
You don't know how good you have it with like real light inside buildings. This was not a luxury I had when I graduated in 2005. But I spent lots of times in those buildings, but also with a lot of extracurriculars. I co-opted. I was involved in a couple of different clubs. I volunteered with the Red Cross based in Lafayette, that covered Lafayette and West Lafayette as well. So I really enjoyed my Purdue experience, and I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put you on the spot again. Sorry, Afwa.
Sure.
We know that you worked with the National Science and Technology Council for the White House. So how was that like working at the White House? Can you please tell us more about working there?
Yeah, so I worked at the White House from June of 2015 through June of 2017. So mostly under the Obama administration and like 6 months into the Trump administration. So I've gotten to see all of the things in a front row seat to so many things covered in the news. And I often describe my White House experience with the Charles Dickens quote of "It was the best of times and it was the worst of times." I truly loved being at the White House as executive director of the National Science and Technology Council. I got to work with the nation's, federal experts on all things science and technology. So I was, on a first name basis with the head of the NSF and the NIH. I got to work with folks from NIST in their cybersecurity programs and in their supercomputing programs. I also, though, touched a lot of things that weren't in any way, shape, or form related to my degree. I learned a lot about harmful algal blooms and plant genomics, things I didn't know existed, but other people, spend their lives researching them and studying them. They're very important. And so it was really exciting. And again, I think some of the transferable skills there are really that ability to know what you know and to really know it and to communicate that, to be able to productively push back and ask questions of other people. But also when you don't know something, you don't have to know everything. And so finding that ability to know when you need to find another expert and how to work with other experts, and just understanding that, having different skills and people being on different teams is completely fine and completely accessible and completely acceptable. And then it's about building those connections.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for sharing your experience at Purdue. And before today's panel, we have collected some questions from the students asking about graduate school, your working experience, and etc. So our first question is, who or what inspired you to choose your current career? So whoever's ready can just start.
The only thing I'll say is that I just forgot to mention, and it's kind of tied into this question, is I also worked on the CAM. I forgot to talk about how I knew Professor Lumore as well, and actually wrote up the business plan for like the first kind of like go to market where Everett and Kyle eventually took that and made a startup. And I really like the combination of business and technical side, like right in between. It's kind of why I'm in the role that I'm in right now. And I think that experience really made me realize that I want to be at the intersection of the two. And, between that and then my boss, like I said, my first boss at Cisco telling me to kind of move into sales engineering and then moving into it, that kind of was a really like the two paths that I really liked, right? The experience that I had at Purdue, like on the different projects on the side. I think it was called VIP projects. I don't know if you guys still call it that or not, but yeah, I really liked that piece. And then I really liked, between that and my first boss at Cisco, it was really good to kind of mentor me and tell me to kind of move into sales engineering, even though it would be leaving his team. Those are probably the two things that got me into where I am today. So.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I guess for me, one of the reasons why I was so keen on joining Tesla was that for me, the environment, climate change, these are all like pretty important matters for me personally. And being able to join a company that's at least sort of helping in that space in some way was pretty important for me. I actually was looking at some of Google's Project X projects, which were supposed to go towards like the clean energy sector as another alternative way back in the day, but ended up joining Tesla and haven't looked back since. So for me, it was more about trying to do trying to work on something that I believed was very important.
Thank you. Also, for any of the attendees, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat area. Mary and I will ask them to the panelists. Okay, we can go to the second question. We also have another question from the current students who are taking ECE 264. They're asking if it's better to get a master's degree right after undergraduate school, or is it better to have work experience and then get a master's degree? So if anyone wants to go, please go ahead.
I can go with that. So I felt like for myself, I think like I just got the like master degree right after my graduation from Purdue, because I thought actually I wasn't like completely ready for work or like for my future like future experience. So I just want to like gain more experience from like both coursework as well as some like industry experiences, probably during my master degree. So during that time, I got an internship from the research park near the campus, and I felt like it really helped me a lot. So if you feel like you're not like completely ready, I would say like definitely go with a master degree. It will help you a lot for like building up your skills, technical skills, as well as some communication skills and something like that. And but also I have some like during my master degree, I also have some like classmates like they're like getting into this program after like several years of experience. I felt like they can like fit in the master degree pretty well as well. So it really depends on like what you want to do like after graduation from your undergraduate college. If you feel like you're ready and you want to explore something in industry, then definitely go for it. But if you're not ready, then probably a master degree will help you. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else wants to share? Afwa, Neeve, Dr. Kai, Sriram?
Sure, yeah, I can talk about a little bit. So as my role now, so I do a lot of hiring. So I talk to candidates a lot, right? So sometimes company actually set some criteria, so we can only recruit like master, right, and bachelor. So you need to be very outstanding, right, with a lot of academia record. So I mean, this is very special for a lot of company when they try to. I mean, depends on. I mean, different companies, right? So if the company, I'm not sure in US we have a lot of good companies, so you can join. You can have a lot of options. But back to China, so a lot of people want to go to just top, right? Top 3 or top 4. So the competition will be very, very high. So sometimes we will require, so you have master, you have some publication, right? You have some open source projects. So I think all this work needs time to work on, right? So maybe you already spend a lot of time in class, right? So you may need a little bit more time to prepare yourself, and also I think get some chance. I mean, of course, now I think Professor Lu's group already have undergraduate students to doing research work, but if you don't, then you can take this master, I mean, degree working on that. I mean, so you can get some chance to taste, to have some taste of the research work, right? So I mean, because research work will help you to prepare how to think, how to design, right? And put everything together. So now once you go to the market, you can get more chance, right? So of course, I mean, if you join the company, if the company, I mean, have very good organization, their project is good, I mean, those senior employee can help you, right? And so you can grow there. I think that's also very good opportunities. But I think compared school and company, so that's totally depends. I mean, if you get a very good company offer, I think you should go, right? If you think the project is good and the advisor there is good, you should go. But if you're not, maybe you can choose school, because school you always has advisor. I mean, from top talents, I mean, they become professors, right? So the professor actually is a top talent in all academic area. So you can see you can enjoy that resource before going to industry. So I think that's two part people can think about. Yeah, just my idea. Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
Actually, we have a question to you, Mina, from the audience. They're asking, how did you get your first internship?
You mean the one like synchrony experience?
Yeah, and
So
yeah, go
so
ahead.
we have this like research, yeah, we have this research park just like Purdue does, and it's very close to the campus. So it I think they're like very like welcoming to like students from University of Illinois. So I believe that the research park will like do the same, like the research park near Purdue will do the same. So I definitely recommend like students to like go for it, go applying for like different internships near the campus, because it will be very convenient for you, and also you can gain a lot from the research park, because they have a lot of companies for you to apply for, and also I think the environment will be more like friendly to students compared to like the real industry, like the real companies. So I think if you haven't got any internship before, then definitely go for the research park application. So I just apply online. They have a like website, and I just applied to like different companies there, and then they also have some like in like, yeah, they will like test you through like meeting in person, because it's very close to the campus, and that's how I get it. And that's it.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Mary, do you want to ask the next question?
Yes. Actually, I saw Neeve was about to share something about the master degree or industry.
Oh,
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna. Mine was different. I like so. I just think different perspectives. I worked and then decided to do a master's while working and do it part time, and I kind of like got my technical. I would say, I would not call it an equivalent of a master's, but furthering my technical education with certifications. So I got like my networking certifications at Cisco, like CCNA and CCNP, and then I got my cloud architect at Google. And I think that's like, if you're interested in research, it's very different than kind of the professional world, I would say. There's obviously similarities, but it is a different path. So I personally like research, but I'm very like practical, like very, that's just how my brain and kind of I've always been. So for me, that was a better path. And then I'm trying to move into product management. And so getting this master's was a way for me to kind of learn and get a formal degree while moving into trying to, continue having a job. And I personally couldn't afford to pay for masters myself, so I needed to kind of continue working. So that was kind of the two reasons why I did what I did in the path that I took. I think it really just depends on what you want to do. Having a PhD or a master's with a thesis is very different from the master's I got. It was a very professional degree, and it just really depends on what you're trying to do. And I would just say that whatever master's you get, just understand, is that what you need to get to where you want to go next? I wouldn't recommend just getting education just to get education. I think you really need to be calculated, especially with a grad degree, like what you want to do with it afterwards, because unfortunately nowadays so many people have college degrees, grad degrees, and all of this is going to become obsolete in the future. And it really depends on like what you want to do, and like being really, I think, calculated in what that is. So that's the only piece that I would say.
Yeah, I just want to add one point about this internship things. So we nowadays, I mean, big internet company recruit a lot of internship, right? So maybe that's opportunity, but I think people also need to look at those startups, very small startups. They need people to work on a lot of things. I think that's very good experience, because the key person in startup, they have a lot of experience. They know a lot of things. If you can join those type of company, you know a lot. So, I mean, even free, I mean, working for them is very valuable. So I think students, I mean, especially you are not very high, I mean, ranking in your group, right? You may not get chance to get into Amazon, Facebook, right? Google. Consider those small startup. I think you may learn a lot from those companies, and know a lot of people, know how they do those entrepreneur work. And that's a lot of, I mean, good experience. So I really recommend people to think about those opportunities. Yeah.
Thank you. We have another question from the audience. If you could go back to when you were an undergraduate student, what advice would you give yourself? Anyone?
I can take
I'd
that.
like to. Oh, actually, who? Oh, actually, and actually, I really want to hear yours. Your experience sounds great. I want to hear yours.
Thanks. Well, I'll start, and then you can add on or correct based on what advice you'd give yourself. But I think if I went back and was giving advice to my undergraduate self, I would tell myself to relax and just start something. I mean, this has been characteristic. This is characteristic of me all through undergrad. Definitely during my IBM years, definitely during most of my grad school experience as well. And that I was always really concerned as to what is the perfect job that I have to take? What's the perfect internship that's going to get me the exact things? What's the perfect, project subject I should pick in a class? And all of it, it's important to work really hard. It's important to be focused. It's important to put in the time and the effort it takes. But at some point, I think you just need to make a decision and go for it and recognize that pivots are part of a career path. There's an earlier question as to, how did something about like how we knew the career. I never would have imagined that I would have ever worked for the FBI, that I ever would have worked for the White House, or even that I would ever be an executive at a nonprofit, an international nonprofit. None of those are jobs that I would have articulated that I wanted while I was in undergrad, but I'm really excited and I've really enjoyed them now being here. And it's in part because especially by the time I was getting out of grad school, I started to think of it more as to what, of the options that I have now, what are the good options? Let's just pick one that feels right from the good options. Don't pick something you know is a bad option. Do that and let's see where it goes and let's explore as we do the work and as we're making progress. So that's the advice, to just relax and just make informed decisions, but then move forward is the advice I'd give myself.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess what I'd want to add on to that. Well, first of all, Mahesh, thank you for asking the question. It's a really good question that I wish I had asked other people when they were in the industry or when I was in college. First of all, what Neeve said earlier is very good. You always want to try and have a plan of where you want to go and try to cater your college work towards your target. So if you're trying to get into academia, yeah, definitely focus on getting research experience, focus on getting your GPA pretty high and, trying to nail down all that course content. Personally, one thing that I want to say is that if you're trying to head towards the industry, try to get any sort of practical experience. This is something that I saw was lacking in some students when I came to Purdue to recruit last year. Essentially, I would rather recruit someone who has an okay GPA, but a ton of project experience, research experience, rather than someone who's got a 3.95 and no work experience. For me, I definitely think that having some sort of research or any sort of practical experience is definitely essential. I think that the way that I got my job at Tesla is because of my experience at Purdue Solar Racing. So definitely get practical experience. That's one. Number two, try to. I guess this is like a pretty this might be a redundant thing to say, but try to understand your course content. Don't try to just get a good grade in your course. The value of your education is what you're learning. Sure, your GPA matters. I'm not saying it doesn't, but understanding the course content and understanding it to its core and making sure you know that inside out is very, very important in the future. Nowadays, when you get into the industry, you will wonder, why did I take all those courses? I'm only using 10% or 20% of what I'm actually learning in class, what I actually learn in college. But one day something will come along and you'll be like, oh, wait, I took that class a long time ago. And now I wish I remember that. For me, that class would be EC 382, which is controls, at least it was called 382. Recently having to work with a bunch of control systems in the last year, I found myself looking back on that class and being like, wow, I wish I had saved those notes. I wish I had just understood PI controls and PID controls correctly back then, instead of just trying to get a good grade in that class like back then. But now that I understand the content much better, I find myself looking back and being like, okay, I wish I just try to get the content right instead of just trying to get a good grade. So I guess that would be, those would be my two pieces of experience. Try to get practical experience and try to make sure you understand your course content, because that's more important than the grade, in my opinion.
If anyone wants to add anything to what Sriram and Afua said?
Yeah, just a very, 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 because everything is we're talking about is about academia successful, right? So, I become a very successful student, right? So either good GPA or either very good project experience. I think one important thing we need to know, is we need to build up some attitude. So you should understanding how the industry going, how the people looking at each other, right? So because we always facing competition and a lot of struggle, a lot of difficult along the career. So how you can conquer that, right? So like Bruce said, so we need to be relaxing. So because this is your student time, you should be relaxing and learn how to fail. So if you fail, that's totally okay. You have to learn from that. So everything we make efforts later on will pay back. That's what I understand. So just keep your good attitudes and keep your interest. So keep working on that and focus, and sooner or later you will see the result, and then they will become a very positive response, right? You work hard, you get result, you're back, and even fail, you learn. Actually, failure help us to learn more than the success. Any debugging will help you to learn the system, right? If you just write the code and it just run perfectly, I would say you never learn from that piece of code. Only when you fail it, then you learn how the system program look like, right? How hard it is. So we should not be afraid of failure. So even you are not doing good in study, in class, in project, in under or in master, never mind, just move on. Just keep that attitude. And I believe if you keep focus, you will get to the point you want. So I think that's the good thing to learn. So because life, a career is a long run. It's never end when you graduate or when you get the first job. Actually, you just try to understand what the job really means to you. So I think that's the key point. People have to be working hard and try to understand everything and put everything together. I think that's the attitude. So and the company look for, a good company look for. So they want people to try to help the company, right? Not just try to help himself. So I think that's the point. So we want people with very positive attitude and to work with them. So yeah, that's my point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
Mary, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, sure. So Professor Liu actually wrote a question in the chat. It says, many students tell me I can't decide. What is your advice?
I would say similar to, I would say when you're looking to decide whether it's on careers or classes, to do the hard work, which means, do your research, figure out what others have to say about the topic, but also what you yourself have to say. And so if you're trying to, pick your major, computer engineering versus electrical engineering, and then within that, where your focus is going to be, talk to other people in that field, talk to other people who are in that major, but also take a look at yourself and what types of courses do you actually enjoy doing? What types of courses do you not enjoy at all doing? What types of courses are difficult, but you think that, if I put in a little bit of effort, where wherever that strength may come from, I could come to like this. I actually think for myself, that's the most exciting for me, is when it's a little bit challenging and it requires me to really work at it and to then be successful. So I think one, just recognizing that, you know, we're all adults here. You can, you know, at some level, you know, the types of things that energize you, that actually will inspire you to continue learning, to continue putting in the work. Because let's be honest, getting through Purdue and then, you know, succeeding as an engineer in the world is a lot of work. And so you should pick an area that is actually interesting to you. And then again, back to what I was saying earlier, just decide. I think for a long time, I thought that, you know, there was one, you know, there's like one ordained path for me and I just had to find it. And what I've realized, and the more I meet people in different positions that I've been in, is that there are a lot of different paths that work for a lot of people. And I know it's can be somewhat frustrating that there's not a clear, like, if you just take this path, like you will be successful. But for me, I actually find that incredibly freeing, that I don't have to worry so much about picking the right path, but picking things that I know that I will continue to put in the work for, because that's actually what's going to make the difference. That type of curiosity, that type of effort is what's going to make the difference to employers, and will be evident in the interviews, will be evident in the code you develop, will be evident in the work you actually deliver.
Yeah, thank you so much for your input. Thank you so much for your advice as well. We have another question from the audience as well, for you, Afua, as well. He's asking, how did you make the move from engineering at IBM to government policy? So he's a computer engineering sophomore who would like to eventually make an impact in digital equity through policy change.
Sure, one of my favorite topics to talk about, but I'll keep this answer brief because I know we're coming up on time, and because I feel like I've been talking a lot. But so for me, I made the move after grad school, and you know, when I went to grad school for business, even, I'd completely planned on going back to IBM. Like, I'd taken a leave of absence from IBM to go to grad school. I planned on going back and just moving into the technical management space at IBM, but ended up getting recruited by the FBI. This is definitely one of the, didn't think I was an option for me, but let's try and let's explore it. And so for me, that's what shifted my journey. What I've seen now, though, is that you can make a much more intentional choice. So I think, you know, if you can minor in or take some classes in the public policy space, or in, you know, even some sociology or some other of the soft sciences, especially, that will help inform your overall view. And then if you do some searching on public interest technology, there's several universities now. Purdue is not one of them yet, who are having master's level degree programs on public interest technology, which is essentially just how do you combine strong technical expertise with the non-technical expertise to address more of the equity and justice issues through technology. So I'd suggest taking a look into that as well. And then, you know, showing up and going to meetups where people are talking about the issues that matter to you. So you can meet both the technical folks and the policy folks and see which side resonates to you, or really where you want to make a difference. I think one thing that I've now realized, and a lot of other people are starting to realize too, is just the power that engineers have to actually make policy. Because, you know, there's very little regulation for current technology, for current software. And so that means that if you are an engineer at Amazon, you're actually making policy that's affecting people's lives, because the way you write your code will decide how people can purchase products or not purchase products. If you work as a, you know, contractor for, I don't know, let's say the IRS, the way you write your code will actually determine how people actually can file their taxes or not file their taxes. So you as a software engineer still have a lot of power there. And I think recognizing that even as an engineer, you really affect the way that people live their lives and live out policy is something to just be aware of.
Thank you. Mary, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah. So we got a question from the audience. How do I properly approach research teams?
Anyone can go, Mina, Neeve, Sriram, or Aphwa.
I have, first of all, I did not go into research, but I did join a couple of research projects when I was still considering grad school. And For me, it was sort of like trying to get more into sort of in line with what I was thinking about pursuing when I was first trying to go for grad school. Obviously, my career ended up changing, but I just try to find things that interested me, because whatever I worked on in grad school was definitely going to be along my lines of interest. So that's how I ended up choosing, okay, let me try to work on something with embedded technology and controls, and let me try working on the satellite research project. So I think definitely maybe just pursuing your interest, but I'm sure that Dr. Kai and Mina would have much better advice than that.
Yeah, I can add some points. So I think the similar thing, like you join a company or join some other organization, right? If you, I mean, not even for a research group, right? So before you join, you need to know what they are doing, right? So then understand they are doing is also a very tough job for an undergraduate. So if you can make that effort and let them know you make such effort, and you talk about what they are doing. For example, they doing, for example, like you guys, like Professor Lu's doing video processing or AI, right? If you go to learn some type of video processing algorithm or learn some like AI, I mean, video related to the AI approach, right? So you can talk about that, and you already attract the interest from that research group and from that research group's advisors, right? So that will totally, I mean, help you succeed in, I mean, if you finally get picked, I think that will play a very good fact, right? You know what they are doing and you do the homework. I think that's very important. And also through this process, you know what you thought, right? You will be very interested, or you will be very stronger. I mean, you have a lot of stress in this area, right? So then from this process, you know what you can do. And now you can talk to the people in that group and to see how they consider your capability, how you can help. Fundamentally, we want to join a group and to contribute, right? If you couldn't, then also, I mean, even you are very interested, but still it's not good, right? So we want to join a group, and we know that, and we can contribute your thoughts, your capability, right? So you can work with the people together to fulfill some target. I mean, so that's how we can do. I mean, at least from my side, if I want to join some group, I will do such work before I choose that group. So.
Yeah, thank you. Mina, I see that you wanted to talk, so go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I remember that at Purdue, we have a lot of like websites containing the information about like different research projects. And I would say like definitely check out all those kinds of like websites before you starting to like approach the research group. And so if you already have an area that you're pretty like interested in, then definitely like go for that area and search for specific research projects related to that, and to like find out which project you're most interested in. And also I think you should not be like shy or like lazy in emailing people, because you might need to like email a lot of people before like getting your like final project. So definitely feel like not lazy to like contact people and emailing people and see like what kind of help they're looking for. If that's not like completely related to what you are looking for, then probably not go for it. Probably just quit that project as soon as possible, because otherwise you're like just wasting your own time. Then let me see. So after emailing people, then yeah, during the emailing process, I would say like tell the professor or the teammates what you're studying and what classes you're taking and what kind of help you can provide them. And if they find out that this is what exactly they're looking for, then they'll be pretty happy to like welcome you into the group. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. Professor Lu is saying we don't have to end it at 3 p.m. If the panelists are still able and have free time, we can ask one of the last audience questions. It was what would be some good ways of getting practical experience?
So go ahead, Shiri. Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead. Fine. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely join any of the technical groups at Purdue. There are tons of them, and all of them, from what I saw last year, needed people. There's tons of work to be done, tons of things to be learned. Like you could join Solar Racing, which is the team I was on. You could join FSAE. You could join. There's a bunch of autonomous driving teams that have started up, I guess, which makes sense given the recent push of more industries for self-driving. That's also really cool. None of these teams require you to have like any sort of experience beforehand. Like they are all made for you to learn. So definitely go join and, you know, put in work there, put in hours there. It's definitely a good thing, a good way to like get a lot of experience. Yeah, go ahead, Neeve, sorry.
No, you're good. The only thing I wanted to say, I think last thing is like do what you're good at. Like you're never like everyone said, like I know we've been talking about do what you like and what you're interested in, but I promise you if you do what you're good at, like I am not good at programming. I took all the classes, I was very interested in it, but like I'm just okay, right? I'll just be honest, right? I didn't have a great GPA. I'll just tell everybody, I had a 3.1 GPA at Purdue. I'm very much a professional, hands-on systems, like networking, like that's just how my brain thinks. And I kind of doubled down in that space and it's paid off. And I think like knowing, like learn stuff that you know you need to learn. Obviously, like I'm not saying like if you're not good at it, like don't learn it. But like if you can really double down in the areas that you know you're good at, like I would really recommend that because you're never going to not like something you're good at. Like you're never going to be like, I hate playing basketball and I'm the best basketball player I know, right? Like that's just very rare, I would say. And I think like that's something, because like whether it's research or whether it's whatever it is, like I would just make sure that you like something that somebody will pay you for that you're also good at that like doesn't suck. I read this in a book from Professor Scott Galloway, if anybody ever knows him. And it's so true. It's like, that's the Venn diagram of like the perfect like area. And I think there was a question about not getting burnt out. And I think like, that's like, if you do something you're good at, plus it's like kind of interesting and doesn't suck, as he would say, and like they will pay you to do it. Like that's kind of the perfect in-between area to like get into, because like, you're never going to like your job 100% of the time. But if you like it like 75% of the time, like then you're in the right field. Right. Because so I would say like both in your research projects and also like career, like that's like the last piece of advice that I just wanted to make sure I give to everybody. So.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for your advice. I know we went overboard over the time, and I don't know if we might have, if the panelists have time, we do have last two couple of questions. If you are available, if everyone can answer, are you available? Yes. Okay.
I'm
available.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. Let me ask this question. It's what is your opinion on contacting recruiters through LinkedIn? Are there other methods, especially now that in-person networking is difficult?
I mean, I think that especially since now that in-person networking is difficult, LinkedIn is a good online tool. And so you should contact recruiters or people you want to be in your network. I also often give people the advice to, if you don't hear back immediately, to not necessarily take it as a no, maybe it is a no. But also, you know, we're living through a pandemic. People have a lot on their minds and it just may be a busy week. So if you don't hear anything back right away, you know, emailing again or contacting again in another 2 or 3 months, I think is totally fair. So start early, network often.
Yeah, definitely. I'd also like to add that in that you definitely will not hear back immediately from a lot of people. and don't lose heart. Like when I originally applied online for my job at Tesla, I heard back a month later, and I had a phone call, and things seemed to be going fine. And then another 2 months of radio silence before I finally emailed the recruiter and said, "Hey, just FYI, I'm an international student. I was an international student, by the way. So I said, FYI, my OPT will be ending soon unless I actually manage to get like a job, and you guys seemed interested in hiring me, so I just wanted to follow up." And after he heard that, he was like, "Oh, yeah, yes, we were considering you. I don't know what happened. Let's get this interview going." And then 2 weeks later, I was working at Tesla. So it's like, you never know what will happen. So just go ahead and send that email. They might have missed it. Something might have happened. Just go ahead, send out that email, send out that request. And yeah, it's a game of chance. So
yeah,
never
the
really
same
know.
thing happened to me with Cisco to Google. So this person who I worked with at Cisco moved to Google Cloud when it was very early on. And then they reached out and were like, "Hey," so I cover like media and entertainment customers like Fox, Netflix, CBS, Viacom. So they were like, "Hey, there's a sales engineering role under that same vertical at Google Cloud. I know you're doing that at Cisco. Like, we think you'd be a good fit." And this was someone I know, like I'm friends with him. And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great. Like, let's talk to the hiring manager." He didn't answer me for 2 months. And I was like, "Okay, well, whatever. Like, I don't know why. Like, does he like hate me? Like, why would he do that?" And then he came back from paternity leave and just had a baby and was like, "I'm really sorry. Here, let me put you in touch with the hiring manager." I was boarding a flight to go to headquarters in Newark Airport. I get on the phone and like it's dropping in and out with the hiring manager. And I'm like, "I'm really sorry." He's like, "I understand. Let's just get you through the interview process next week. You sound like a good fit." And that's how it happened. So I think like luck, following up, don't take it personally, like just a +1 what Shri said, because like the same thing happened to me. So
Definitely. Dr. Kai, I saw you wanted also to input on this.
Yes, it's a lot of internal changes will affect this hiring process. So don't be frustrated if anything, delay, whatever. So like I can see, so first hiring manager will target some special candidate, right? So once you show some capability, you are special, so they will remember, right? When the position open come out, so they will first look for the talent to fill in, right? But sometimes they may don't have the head count, right? So they will wait, right? This will change. They will seasonally change, but they will have this in mind. I need people to do this. I know that person can do this. So they already have the mapping in their mind. Now they just need the resource, and the resource sometimes come, sometimes will not come. So that will be some processing. Just not controlled by hiring manager or not controlled by the candidate, right? We just need to be patient, but you need to be outstanding. You need to be let the hiring manager, a lot of hiring managers, to know your strengths, right? Then they can consider you and consider to try to interview you, right? So that's how we try to reach out more, and we also do more homework to make us outstanding, right? That's the process. Try and prepare and back and forth, right? Even going to the interview is a very good practice for all kinds of, because you will need to talk to people. The hiring manager, of course, a lot of engineers will try to do coding, right? But a lot of hiring manager, they just talk to you and to try to understand what's your stress, how you understand this problem, how you can help the team to success, right? So that's a similar thing when we try to pick up a research group. This process is very, very similar. If you already doing that in school, it will be, it will be very helpful for you to do in the industry. It's the same process. I want to know this person be capable of, right? And I want to interview with this person and ask questions. And those questions is very, it's like if you don't think about over, right? If you don't have experience, it's very hard to answer, right? It's not like you can learn that from the book. You'll do it. You have to. That's a question back to the previous one. That's how to gain the practical experience.
Yeah.
As a student, you have to think, think like Professor Lu, right? Like a thinker. So you have to think through and you take actions, you practice and back and forth. That's how you learn this practical experience. Now you go to field, go to see those industry people. You will not be afraid because you already know more than them. So that's how this process goes. So succeed in school already will help you to succeed in the industry if you prepare very well with those practical, thinking, practical project experience. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. I think this will be the last question from Professor Lu. Does anyone want to suggest changes to Purdue? Mina, you just recently graduated, so you might have like a lot of ideas in your head right now.
So actually, I went back to Purdue in around April or May this year, and I found they already have a lot of like changes there, and I felt like the campus is more like beautiful, and also the gate is pretty like huge and pretty. And as for changes, I really feel like Purdue already has a lot of like good resources for students, so I couldn't think of any more. And after comparing the Purdue campus with the UIUC one, I found out that the dining court is like much better. Like the Purdue dining court was much better. And also we have like better gyms. And yeah, I really cannot think of any more.
It's fine. Afua, Sriram, Dr. Kai, and Neeve, any changes do you want to suggest to Purdue?
It's been
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I went first last time, so you please go ahead.
I can't really think of any. I'm with Mina on this. There's been so many like great things that came out of Purdue, and the resources that they give you with industry placement, like the career fairs, the education itself, and all the amenities on campus. I think that Purdue did a good job and it's like a good value for money in what they actually give you. It is up to you to take advantage of that. So definitely try to make use of everything that Purdue gives you. There's a lot more. Purdue gives you a lot more than what you actually like realize when you think back on it. So yeah.
Yeah, I graduated 15 years ago. So some of the changes that I would have said, I was last on campus last year, and I've seen many of them made. As has been said, the resources and the infrastructure and just facilities Purdue has are really amazing, from the labs to the dining hall. If there's one suggestion I would make to Purdue, though, is, again, it's been 15 years, so it's been a while. But then, the non-engineering classes were always viewed as something you just had to take, right? They require however many credit hours, and you sign up for the simple English class or psychology class or something. I think the sort of cultural change I would suggest would be to really take those classes seriously. I think one of the trends is, as you look at for leaders and just so much crossover in the technical space, that people who have an understanding of some of the non-technical aspect are really starting to, who have an understanding of both technical, they're really solid on the technical side, but also have some of that other non-technical understanding and can speak to it, are starting to differentiate themselves in the workplace. And so taking those classes seriously, that being part of the culture, is something I would add. Maybe it's already changed, who knows?
Yeah, and to add on, I think a more life lesson is like take a personal finance course. No matter what you do, you're gonna need that. And that's just kind of like life advice. And I think if Purdue had that, it like, stocks 101, 401k, balancing budget, like just basic stuff. It's just useful for everyone. I don't know about everybody's high school, but like my high school kind of had it and it was good. But then I noticed at Purdue, it was not there. Like you had to go out. I think there's a personal finance class, but you had to like go take it, right? So I think like, I think there was complimentary electives, I believe, in the curriculum. Like if you could just take that one personal finance class, I would just highly recommend it, because no matter what you do, research, literally doesn't matter what career, you can completely go to medical school and like disregard everything on this call. Like you're going to need a personal finance, like no matter what. So that'd be the only thing I'd almost require students to take that if I was at Purdue.
Dr. Kai?
Yeah, I left school for so many years, so I still remember Purdue have the research and the science park, right? So that's how professors can have some idea and establish some companies, right, working on these ideas. Maybe we can do more, right? So I mean, Purdue is famous for like for 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 risk. I mean, for good engineer, right? But maybe we also need student to be an entrepreneur, right? So that's how industry look at, I mean, different kind of university, right? Stanford and Carnegie Mellon, they have a lot of professor and students, and they actually build their own company, even they are in the campus, right? Even they are still, I mean, working on their degrees. I think we also need to offer this opportunity for professor and this graduate students to do that just in campus. I think, I mean, marry this VC and the technology together, right, to make Purdue become more have more impact on the technology innovation, right? Not only technical itself, but also the business part. I think we should do that. So then students get more opportunities and professor gets more open, broad place to play. I think that's maybe some limitation we can conquer, we can, I mean, overcome, right, in near future. So
Yeah, thank you.
yeah,
Professor Liu always encourages entrepreneurship. So yeah, we do understand that Purdue needs to have more entrepreneurs coming from it. That is,
exactly.
yeah. So thank you everyone really for coming here today. And I think we've covered thoroughly all the questions regarding industry and graduate life. Special thanks to Professor Liu for organizing this panel, and thank you to the panelists for attending. Thank you, Sriram, Dr. Kai, Neeve, Minghao, and Afwa for being here and sharing your experience with us. So I think I'll stop recording here and then everyone can just say his goodbyes.